Hello, Rock Talk fans. It is Jeff and Danton. We are back in the Zoomiverse with another homework assignment. Now, what that means is every week we give each other an album we've never heard before, and then a week later or so, we come back and we talk about it on the podcast here. So today we got two really cool albums, I think, to talk about. I was given Visigoth The Revenant, which is a 2015 album by a band that's classified as new wave of traditional heavy metal. I can't wait to talk about this. And what did I give you?
I got from Blind Guardian, Nightfall in Middle Earth.
It's another one that I'm really excited to hear what do you think about this one too, because Blind Guardian is a really, really cool, famous power metal band that's been around for a very long time, and a lot of power metal lovers like really put these guys up on a pedestal. And especially this album. So I'm really excited to hear about what you think about it. So I think I'm going to toss it right over to you first. You go first. You tell me what you think about Nightfall in Middle Earth.
There's all this pressure.
Sounds so dorky, doesn't it?
It does. It's funny because I hate to say it, I'm going to disappoint you and all of the people who love this album a lot, because I didn't get it at all. I mean, I love power metal. I like Blind Guardian a lot. I think they're an awesome band with a great sound, and I really like Lord of the Rings. You know, I as much as I don't watch movies, I very fondly remember specifically watching the entire extended trilogy in one sitting with a bunch of friends on a particular holiday weekend a couple years ago, and it was like stupid fun, and we did the entire set of all the movies, and I loved it from start to finish. And even though I'll probably never read the books, I'm all about the lore, and I'll probably rewatch the movies at some point in the future, and that's saying something because I don't watch movies. So I kind of went into this with some pretty high expectations, like, oh, this is going to be so cool, it's going to be all themed around it probably, and it's going to have like tons of like real epic like power metal bangers, and it's, you know, and it might have just been the particular listening mood I was in today when I visited it, because, you know, naturally, for those of you who don't follow the homework reviews, I always go in completely cold. I wait the day of. I do no look at what the album, like, I don't do any research. I don't read any of the lyrics or look at any of the artwork. I just jump in and hit play and just listen to it in one take. And this result is my first impression of what the album did for me. And when I started it this morning, you know, and the opening track, War of Wrath, was like this short little like 2-minute thing, and it was like a filler kind of thing, like oh, it's gonna open the album, it's gonna have like talking and text, and it's gonna like be this kind of atmosphere thing. The first actual song, Into the Storm, is the second track, and that song blew me away. I absolutely loved it. I really consistently across the entire album, I loved the particular sound of the guitars. Like the actual, like the way they sounded, the tone color, the timbre, the technique, they were like really wicked sounding, like tons of really great bends and really cool harmonies. A lot of the really cool twin lead stuff that I love in new wave metal and in power metal and in all things metal that I love. I love those screaming twin guitar leads. And Into the Storm had a lot of really nice ones, and I thought it was awesome. And then we got to the next track, which was like just 30 seconds, and it was like, okay, here's more filler stuff. And like consistently throughout the album, they keep doing this. Like they play like an actual song, and then there's like all these like filler things. You know, here's like a little like acoustic, like here's someone playing something on a lute for a minute, and then whatever. Which I get, that's part, like they wanted like this whole thing to kind of come together as a program, and like I'm sure if I was like reading along with it, or I was more familiar with the lore of the Lord of the Rings, for all like the hardcore fans out there, this is probably a piece of gold from heaven above, you know, and it's probably awesome. And I'm sorry for pooping on it, but for me musically, it was really frustrating to listen to, because it was like every other track is going to be an actual song that I want to hear, and like for me, like, when they actually play songs, they were awesome. All the ones that they actually, you know, Curse of the Fiend, I really liked. Mirror Mirror was probably my favorite. Noldor, Dead Winter Rains, I thought was awesome. Time Stands Still at the Iron Hill was really catchy, had a really cool chorus, and like all the things about the band and their sound. And I really like the singer's voice, even though it's a lot different than what I've come to expect from power metal singers, for like other acts that I follow, particularly Rhapsody. I've gone on record before saying Rhapsody's my favorite power metal band. So I always compare every other power metal thing I hear to that. And this is very different from that. But I like it. I like his singing a lot. It's really good. He's got a ridiculous, incredible range, and he sounds good everywhere he sings. When Sorrow Sang, I really liked. And A Dark Passage I thought was pretty cool. But those were the only ones I like really genuinely liked. The rest of it, like, it all just felt so slow, and like kind of like every other track, it's like, oh, now we're stopping and now we're listening to some kind of goofy, like, building atmosphere kind of thing. Like, just get to the songs. Like, let me hear, like, when they're actually playing power metal, they do it exceptionally well. But this album is just, I felt it was just overstuffed with all this filler crap that we just don't need. And like it's really like an 8-track album, but there's like 23 tracks on the thing. Like I was looking at it because I was maybe like 3 or 4 tracks in. And I was wondering, I was like, how long is this album going to be? And I looked at it, and because of course on Spotify, it tells you like, oh, okay, here's 23 tracks, and it's like an hour 9 minutes. So it's like it's really only about 40 minutes of music. It's like it could so easily be like a short thing and just like hit me with like punch. It's power metal. I don't need all the build up. Like I found it really, like I said, I was really annoyed and frustrated listening to it, at least the first time. Like I said, if I revisited it at some point in the future, I'd probably like it more, because at least now I'm expecting that to happen. And I could always, I purposefully also didn't skip any tracks. Like, I was so tempted so many times, like, oh, here's another, like, spoken text kind of thing. Let me sit, I'll listen to the whole thing. I'll do every track, start to finish. And by the end of it, I was kind of disappointed. I didn't like it as much as I was hoping I would going in, because like I said, I like Blind Guardian, I like Lord of the Rings, and having that be the concept of what this is sounds like a match made in heaven. And it probably is for a lot of people out there. It just wasn't for me.
Oh, cousin EJ is going to be very disappointed.
I know, he's probably gonna cry. It's like, how do you not like that album? It's so amazing. Yeah, well, I could hear him.
When I told him, Christmas Day night when we were at his house, when I told him like that was your homework assignment, he was like, "Oh yeah," and he starts singing it. He's like, "Give it to me." He loves that album, and
yeah, I don't remember that because we were all pretty far gone by then. We had more than a couple. A
little bit of drinking.
There was a little bit of drinking on Christmas this year.
Okay. I do understand where you're coming from. I usually skip the spoken word stuff and the little songs, and I do bounce around on this album because I've heard it so much. But the songs that you mentioned that you really liked are the ones that I go back to. Into the Storm, the first real song.
Awesome opener. What a way to open an album. They don't even need the first track. That should be the first thing you hear when you put this album on. Yeah.
I get it. Yeah. And you're right. You mentioned that, and I do skip around. I do skip around this album a lot. Sorry, it didn't blow you away.
Yeah, it didn't. I mean, the parts that did were great, but
I would say, do check out the rest of their stuff though. Night at the Opera the album that came out after this is really good.
Okay.
Twist and a Myth, I believe, is another one. Like, they get this style. Like, their first couple albums may be kind of more experimental because they're not sure which way they're going. Then they hit this one album, and from that album on, like, they're like, okay, this is what we're about, and they just hone that style to being even better and better. A Twist and a Myth, I think, is probably my favorite by them. I think it's been a while since I listened to them, but I remember really liking that one a lot. And I do have to correct you. This album is not based on Lord of the Rings. It's based on the Silmarillion, which is the book.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Well, yeah, it is a Middle Earth thing, but it's the book J.R. Tolkien wrote. It's the book he wrote after the Lord of the Rings, which was it was like a prequel to the Lord of the Rings or something. I don't know. I never read that one, but EJ let me in on that one too. Our cousin EJ, he knows everything about Tolkien.
He's a big Tolkien guy. Yeah, he's really, really big on him.
But yeah. All right. Well, the album songs, they're varied. There's quick pace numbers, there's ballads, there's operatic pieces, there's medieval folk instruments, which I think is really cool. But it's like, this was 1998. Also, I remember hearing it and it was blowing me away, because there was only, the bands were kind of like experimenting with this kind of sound more so back then. Before every power metal band developed that. Another thing I think we need to do a deep dive on is definitely folk metal. I think we need to talk folk metal on one of our podcasts sometime, because
let's do it.
Folk metal, power metal, they kind of overlap a lot. Okay, so you didn't like it that much. Nightfall, Middle Earth. At least it wasn't too bad. I know I've given you worse stuff than that.
It was definitely, like, for what it was a great album. Like, if I had to grade it, I'd give it at least like a 7 out of 10 or an 8. But it just wasn't for me. It just didn't hit me. There was a lot of it that I just was bored by, and you know,
those little interludes kind of ruined it for you.
Yeah, I could have done the album without any of that.
All right, well, let's move on. Let's move on to something better. Because the album you gave me reminded me a lot of Blind Guardian. And that's why I gave you Nightfall, Middle Earth, because the album you gave me, Visigoth, The Reverend King, from 2015, reminds me a lot of this, of Blind Guardian, a lot of like power metal bands like Hammerfall, like it's a little bit Rhapsody in some places, but this is a Utah-based band too. They're from America.
Oh, really? I did not know that.
Yeah, these guys do not seem like they should be from the middle of the United States.
Right?
From Utah, Nuwasim, we'll call it. It's a musical movement started in like the mid 2000s. It's a revival of like that classic metal sound from like the 80s. I'm thinking like bands like even Dio, we'll say, even a little bit of Dio there, Saxon, old Judas Priest, some Iron Maiden, Manowar, Motorhead mashed up with some like Metallica, Megadeth, Exodus, a little bit of Venom maybe, Grim Reaper comes to mind. Like these bands that aren't power metal bands, but like proto power metal, but like it's hard to describe, but there's a sound that's there that bands like White Wizard have, Eternal Champion, Gygax is another one. They all fit into this subgenre, which is kind of power metal-y, kind of traditional metal. These guys know how to write classic, really catchy songs. That's another thing. It's like everything's catchy. The chorus is like very, like, I want to swing my beer and
they're
sing
all
the chorus,
smashing tankers together.
Yeah. Like power metal, the singer now, his range isn't anything special, but he mainly sings like in a melodic mid-range vocal, but like his conviction, like he loves this. I could tell.
You can hear it in his singing. Yeah,
he loves this shit. And all the stuff. It's all like, it's a great blend of like 80s style, like anthem type heavy metal, crossed with a little bit of power metal, touch of like Black Sabbath here and there, like Mammoth Rider. Really, really cool song.
Yeah,
it's kind of like this.
I like that one too.
It's like a slower mid tempo kind of doomy kind of sound. Dungeon Master though is by far the best song on the album.
Yeah, no contest.
It's so good. It's so good. And it's cheesy. It's goofy, and I loved every second of it. It really was good because the album's pretty long. The album's about an hour long.
Yeah,
so,
but it's only 9 tracks.
It has enough variation though. Not to get totally boring. Like I wasn't bored. I listened to it a couple times. I really liked it. I gotta be in the mood for it. And they only have like two or three albums. But again, a lot of Manowar influence. They all have, every song on this album has like the whole fist in the air, Brothers of Metal kind of sing along thing. Which is, it's cheesy, but it's fun. There's a Manila Road cover, Necropolis, great cover of classic rock song. I like this version better than the Manila Road version. I don't really like Manila Road that much.
I feel exactly the same way.
Yeah. This song, I think they did a great cover. They heavied it up a little bit. But the tracks on it, Reverend King, Dungeon Master, Mammoth Rider, pretty much the whole album. Blood Sacrifice is good too. Arcane Mists of Prophecy. It's pretty much the whole album is good.
Yeah, great
if you
close. I like the last track a lot.
Yeah, if you like this type of music, this song or just
This is
like
an absolute must for you.
Yeah, this album is exactly what you need. And like I said, you gotta be in the mood for it. Well, that's about it.
Yeah, I never heard of this band before. A friend of mine shared this album with me like months ago. I was like, "Oh, listen to this thing," and I was like, you know, I had no idea what it was, so I kind of shelved it for a long time. And then when I messaged it to you before Christmas, it was the day I finally was like, screw it, let me actually jump in and give it a listen. And it totally floored me. I was like, oh, this is amazing! Oh my god!
The song has to be catchy, and all these songs are catchy. That's pretty much all they are. They're nothing flashy. They're nothing crazy fantastic. Like I said, the vocalist isn't like, you know, he's great, but he's good enough. They're all good at what they do, and they write catchy songs, and that's all I needed from this album, you know.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you liked it.
There you go. There's our homework for this one.
Beautiful, very cool. So yeah, for those of you watching, you know, stay connected. If you haven't heard either of these two albums, give them a listen, check them out, and see for yourself if you agree with what we say about them or if you have your own opinions, and let us know. And we'll send some more new listening assignments to each other in the coming weeks, and we'll go from there when we go.